So, folks. All right, New York City Democrat primary. All right. Zohran Mamdani. Now, first of all, I want to get this out here. Roger Meadows, if you're watching the show, and to the triple threat ladies, Fiorella Isabel, to Sapasayabs, and Blue Moon Red Wine. Look, I have to say, you guys' work on calling out, Zohran Mamdani is beautiful. Okay, now I'm going to make it clear. I want to hold out for hope, but see, the problem that stops me there is that he's with the Democrat Party. And it already looks like that I think Zohran needs to do a Democrat exit, okay? I'm not expecting much from him, to which I would say I'll be praying that maybe I'm wrong. But I want to give a shout out to my fellow New York, even though I'm not from New York City, I want to give a fellow shout out to Do Dissidents, Larry Sharp, and of course, Jose Vega, because, this tweet on Easy Street caught my attention, not only from Dr. Jill Stein, but Brianna Joy Gray. So let's go ahead and pull this up here. Zohran needs to Democrat exit. Why does he need to Democrat exit? Because this happened. All right. They're preparing to India Walton him. Okay. All right. Because Governor Kathy Hochul says she's not ready to endorse Zohran Mamdani. You're going to watch a tune change with Zohran. I want to be wrong. But I've seen this before.
Will you support his candidacy and will you back him?
The election just completed. I had a chance to call and congratulate him on the Tuesday's primary and look forward to having conversation. Obviously, there's areas of difference in our positions, but I also think we need to have those conversations. But in the meantime, I truly am not focused on the politics. We're 6 months away from Inauguration Day, and that'll determine who I'm working with for the next 4 years. And that's important because what I'm doing, I'm focusing on affordability and making New York City safe and making the state safe. So that's my primary objective right now.
So are you skeptical then of him and then also the will of New York City voters, New York Democratic primary voters? Do you think that their choice is not valid?
No, I don't see how you can possibly conclude that from what I just said. I said that I'm going to be having conversations.
Remember, who is her predecessor? A guy named Cuomo.
I want to find out, positions on specific issues. But in the meantime, I'm working closely with Mayor Eric Adams, who is the mayor, who we have a lot of work to do to get through, a crisis right now. We just had a lot of people in our city, under siege with, excessive temperatures. We have to keep making sure our subways are safe, building more housing under City of Yes, which we were able to get over the finish line. So as much as there's a lot of people, perhaps even in this room, who are very focused on the politics, I don't have the luxury to do that. I focus on governing and delivering for New Yorkers and working with the people that are in government today.
Governor.
Now, this did catch my attention. Zohran Mamdani did pledge to tackle anti-Semitism. Now, look, I don't like racism. I don't like sexism. I don't like bigotry. I don't like anti-Semitism. And he's saying to tackle anti-Semitism across New York City with an 800% increase in funding for hate crime prevention programs on behalf of fearful Jewish New Yorkers. Look, I mean, there's a lot of hate out there, but I don't know. Can't we all just sit down and get along? Because, when I look at these, prevention programs, there's been a lot of reports that they've been a huge waste. All right.
And I know that Jewish New Yorkers, like Jewish Americans, are fearful in this moment of anti-Semitism. They're fearful, especially after the horrific attacks that we saw in Washington, D.C. and in Boulder, Colorado. And they're fearful also in conversations that I have heard myself about life in this city. I spoke to a Jewish man in Williamsburg not too many weeks ago who told me about the fact that he now locks the door that he used to close, that he used to keep open for years because of a fear of who may come in. I spoke to a friend of mine after October 7th who told me about going to his synagogue for Shabbat services and hearing the door open behind him and turning around with a tremor going up his back, not knowing who was walking in and what they wished for them. And ultimately, it's through the conversations I've had with Jewish New Yorkers that I have developed a proposal for the Department of Community Safety that would include an 800% increase in funding for hate crime prevention programs. Because ultimately, we cannot simply say that anti-Semitism has no home in this city or no place in this country. We have to do more than talk about it. We have to tackle it. And that's what we will do through this funding and through this commitment. We will root out bigotry across the 5 boroughs.
Now, of course, this is probably a reaction to, corporate media seeing him win, and in turn, his association with a few progressive and activist groups, most only those that are calling for the war in Gaza to end, the genocide in Gaza to end. And you're going to have those individuals, most notably in conservative-leaning spheres, and yes, even in the vote blue, no matter whose spheres, by saying that he is in support of anti-Semitism. Now, do I think that he's going to be changing his tone in regards to his policies and a few other things? Yeah, I think so. I think so, without a shadow of a doubt. Look, I'm not too impressed with Zohran Mamdani, all right? I want to be wrong. Maybe he'll be consistent. Maybe he could turn things around. But his win shouldn't come as a surprise, because look at who he was facing off against, Cuomo, okay? Now, thankfully, New Yorkers saw just how much of a problem Cuomo is, but seriously, then again, Cuomo is still a problem. And overall, though, Mamdani is still part of the Democrat Party. He won the Democrat primary, which means he has to toe the party line. Now, having the office of New York mayor means a lot, but only if you could effectively wield it and if you have the infrastructure backing you up. I mean, in comparison to Chicago, the Chicago mayor is more powerful than the New York City mayor. Okay, maybe I shouldn't go that far, but I only say this from my experience and from what I learned from my elders and what I've lived through firsthand through the second Daley administration. In Chicago, the council used to run the city until Old Man Daley and the Democrat machine worked together and turned the office of mayor into the end-all be-all of Caesar's throne. Nothing gets done. Old Man Daley was in charge of everything that was happening. Nothing got in without Caesar's approval. And then his son, Daley Jr., was able to implement the same thing too. Now, Mamdani does have some grassroots support, but overall, he's still part of the Democrat Party. And the Democrat Party, especially under the new DNC chair, especially for federal elections, made it clear that they want to have their good billionaires and that they also don't want to remove the incumbents. Look what they did to David Hogg, and Rebellion PAC, done by Cenk Uygur, isn't going to go anywhere. It's nothing more than a fart in the wind. And AOC and Bernie are doing the Fight the Oligarchy tour just to bring in people back into the Democrat Party. And this election, this win that Mamdani did, could consequently build up false hope in thinking that you could reform a party that has made it very clear it doesn't want to reform. Remember Force to Vote. Remember March for Medicare for All. Remember the 3-day General Strike Summit meeting. Remember the fight for $15. That didn't happen in 2021. That should have been the big reveal for everybody, that the Democrats will not change. They will not reform. DSA failed. Justice Democrats failed. Brand new Congress failed. Our revolution failed. I want to pull up this video here. This is from Due Dissidents, where they had Kshama Sawant on their show. I'm just going to play just a little bit of it because I think it matters just overall, about Mamdani's win. But for the fact of, and this is important here, vigilance is key.
In my opinion, there's two facets to this, right? There's what Nick called when he interviewed you yesterday, and I think he's 100% right about this. There's the propaganda win. Massive, unequivocal propaganda win for an anti-apartheid, one-state solution. Israel only has the right to exist as a democratic state, not as an apartheid Jewish state. For someone like that to win a mayoral primary in New York City is seismic. I can tell you that as someone who's lived in New York City half my adult life, lived in the metro area more than half my adult life. Russ is born and raised there, lives there now. It is incredible to see that happen. The fact that he won and that the Zionists were not simply able to scream anti-Semite and shut the conversation down. There is no overstating how massive that is. And I think the pro-Palestine movement would be foolish not to tout that, right? Now, the second piece of it is what you're talking about, which is, okay, it's possible on occasion to defeat the ruling class at the ballot box, but how do you actually win these demands? Do you see these two as kind of like separate pieces of this, or are they one and the same?
In a way, they're one and the same and they're one and the same in the sense that such a campaign has won, in the primary because of the huge opening that exists among working people to do something to fight for them, to end the war. There's people are angry. I mean, one of the things that it reflects. I mean, first of all, just to back up, I think you made an important point about, you and Russell both as having been from New York and still living in New York. I think it is, if there was any piece of evidence to be had that the Zionist lobby can be defeated, then this is it.
Right.
So so we are hearing from a lot of people who are supporting our campaign that they are super excited and energized by this primary victory of Mamdani because it shows that we can win. I mean, it shows, because we are running an anti-genocide campaign, and I have a long track record of being against the Israeli state's occupation of Palestine, and we're running against this warmonger, arch warmonger, and genocidal Adam Smith, and that it's possible to do that. So I think that's an overpowering statement that actually we will do working class and anti-war movements a disservice if we don't state that enough. But the two pieces you mentioned are connected in the sense that working people want to fight. The way in which they are separate is that because that's when it brings up the question of what kind of leadership are we going to have to win any of those things. And you said it right. I mean, the DSA is a mixed bag. I would probably go even further to say that in proportion with their size and with the number of elected representatives they have got elected into office, I think what they have won really just it's no comparison to what we won with one elected office and in one city and obviously it far less sort of overt power because they have all these powerful elected officials that like AOC, but what has actually happened is that many of those elected officials, though especially the prominent ones, have ended up selling out. But it's not just about them; it's also about the many others that have been elected. That's the question. What is it that you won? And I think we have to make a distinction. I mean, there are rank and file DSA members, many of them, thousands upon thousands of them, who agree with us and who have many of them in Seattle and also nationally have fought alongside us. Right now, many of them are donating to our campaign as well, I'm sure, because, we have donations from 43 states and Washington, D.C. and Puerto Rico. So we're making it clear this is a national campaign. It has a national reach. And we have talked to many DSA members who want to fight. I'm a DSA member. I've been for years, but I don't agree with the DSA leadership in its approach of, being very soft on the Democratic Party.
I want to pause there because, look, I want to add in my first-hand account with DSA. It was like pulling teeth, okay? Like, there was a time, 2017, 2018, we would cover, like, the socialist event here in Chicago. And it was like if you guys want to get your message out, you got to talk to the media, and so yeah, I'm there. I think that's as kind as I could put it without being too mean. But yes, there was a point. Where maybe DSA could actually do something. But I mean, I have doubts, and I think it's important for everyone in New York to really pay attention to Mamdani and his policies, and to a lot of progressives that are there. I would say prepare yourselves for the soon to be disappointed in the actions of this mayor and overall what he could promise to follow through on. I think, if you're talking about having affordable housing, yeah, definitely. New York City is very expensive, just like Chicago. Fight for, again, for workers' rights and everything else. But the Democrat Party does not like to have things shooken up. The Democrat Party has made it very clear that they don't want to change their brand. They don't want to change their ways. They want good billionaires. And the Democrat Party has we've seen it. They've gone on record saying that they are a private institution. You know, they've already made it clear, and in not one, but 3 primaries that Hardlands Media has covered. My goodness, 3 primaries that they will rig it in order to favor their corporate candidate. So do I have hope for Mamdani and for follow through for his campaign promises? No, I don't. And I think it's important for us to remember that, because we're not going to vote our way out of it. Yes, what he did was a huge win. But there was a lot working against Cuomo in the first place. Cuomo didn't do himself any favors during COVID. He was his own worst enemy. But we'll see what happens, because you know something, folks? In 2027, it's going to be Chicago's city election. Will Brandon Johnson be a one-term mayor? Maybe. But oh my goodness, I could see the whole who's who of Chicago politics and business running for the office of Chicago mayor. Stay tuned to Hardlands Media, folks.